Gary, I'd like to ask you about your experiences. When Joy died, obviously it was incredibly sudden, and she was very young, and you had two children. You were also out of the country when she died. So there's all of these very traumatic circumstances around Joy's death that were, I'm sure, incredibly hard to deal with. What I'd like to ask you is, after Joy died, how did nature provide a comfort to you, and how did those pagan beliefs and pagan, the way, because you celebrated them together?
We did, and we had done for years. And I mean, she died 4 days before Samhain, which is Halloween. So, unlike the Halloween tradition, the Samhain tradition, you're honouring the ancestors. It's when the veil is the thinnest between our world and the other world, and you're in touch with the ancestors, and you give thanks to the ancestors for everything they've given you. So the fact she died so close to that, in a way, when Samhain came along, like 4 days later, I could light a candle, and it was like she just joined the ancestors. So instead of feeling, yes, I was totally bereft and heartbroken and lost, obviously, but there was also that sense of that she joined this greater power, this greater other side, where she was now part of something I could look to at that time of the year. It's really hard to sort of put into words, but there was a sort of comfort in knowing she was part of this greater consciousness, if you like, of what had gone before. And it's also looking at the nature terms as well. As you say, you're looking at the trees falling at that point and the leaves going into the ground. But when you see the leaves lying on the ground, you see that they are feeding new growth. Mm-hmm. And I sort of took from that, as the time went by, there's a new growth in yourself. You've had this loss, but out of that loss, there's a new birth in a new kind of you, and a new kind of way you have to live your life. And so I sort of took that on board as well at the same time. And in practical terms, we did very physical things with it. So when Joy died, and she was cremated, and then a couple of months later, in February, actually, round about Imbolc, in fact, we had a tree planted, and her ashes were put in the hole where the tree was growing. But also at her passing ceremony that we'd asked people to bring along organic things like leaves, feathers, fruit, nuts, whatever, and put them in a cauldron, as it were, with a thought or a memory or a wish about her. And all that went into the root hole with the tree and the ashes. So all these memories went in stuff that was going to rot into the ground and then feed this new life of the tree. And that became very symbolic of how we went forward, thinking about her and thinking about moving on. So that's how we sort of took that element of it on board.
That's really lovely. And I think that, in an increasingly secular society, part of the thing that we're missing is ritual and an ability to kind of celebrate and memorialize people. We kind of it feels like we're between things at the moment, and we are sort of, I think, for a lot of people, searching for ways to find meaning.
Well, I think acknowledging that we are part of that whole wheel. I mean, and you've got the wheel of the year, which also is echoed in the wheel of life as well, in the circle of life, in growth and death and rebirth. It's all tied in together, and we are just part of that. So, when we're born, this energy coalesces and becomes this person. When we die, that energy goes back out into the greater universe, and you become part of the whole again, So acknowledging that was a sort of important part, and talking about that with my kids as well. When they said, what happens when you die? And I say, well, nobody really knows, but lots of people believe lots of things. And I told them what different religions believed. And I told them what I believe, which is that we are part of this general energy that comes together and then goes away. And so if they wanted, mum, after she'd gone, all they got to do is look at that leaf, that bird, that breeze, that sunbeam, whatever. That's all her. So she's everywhere whenever they want her, sort of thing. That's how I sort of explained that. And that's how I feel. That's how I feel. I feel she is everywhere in a very true sense.
That's so lovely. Really lovely.